I think we're live, actually. Hello, good evening. Hoping I pressed the right buttons. Let me know if I didn't. But yeah, hope everyone had a nice weekend. It's Monday. I'm sure many of you messed up the timing first time round, because you've got daylight savings, haven't you? And I will join the confusion in the next couple weeks, because we have British summertime coming up, which is 1 hour ahead of UTC time. So, plenty of opportunities to be here at the wrong time. Audio, video, okay, I hope. Thanks for popping by. Perfect, yes. Okay, sweet. I've skipped on the music this time round. I just don't... I don't feel like it. So if that's a problem, let me know. But might as well mix it up from time to time. I think I talk too much for there to be music. You just don't get to listen to it because I'm always just running my mouth. So, you know, if you have strong views about the stream music, let me know. Death metal? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. You only watch the stream for the music. Wow. That sucks. Okay, sweet. First things first, thank you to the show's sponsor, Blockfolio. Visit them in the link in the description below, which is blockfolio.com. Get the mobile app. As I said, we have some cool features and things to show you on the way. I use it. I think it's good. It's about as simple as that. So check out Blockfolio or wait for us to come out with some cool stuff, and then you'll be sure to check it out. Sebastian says using Blockfolio just because of Technical Roundup. Sweet. Do you like it? I think it's really cool. I played around with it and it took me like 2 minutes to KYC, and then I was like swapping Dogecoin to GME and all that fun stuff. So yeah. Other stuff. I hope you watched the retest video on my channel that came out yesterday. It's a reasonably detailed video that I think covers a lot of points which are often overlooked when it comes to trading breakouts, trading retests, risk reward. Like, you know, there's some useful degree of detail there. So if you haven't had a time to check that out, it'll make my content more understandable, probably the Duck's content more understandable as well. It's worth a look. You know, if you think about it, the live stream tends to be around an hour. That video is like an hour, 10, 15 minutes, and you'll probably learn a lot more in the video. So yeah, let's get straight into it. You know I don't like to clickbait, so when I say the best Bitcoin levels to trade this week, I'm literally going to start the video with that. So go ahead and leave a like, and let's discuss what I think and where I think those levels are. So, quite simply, on the weekly time frame, we're retesting the area from which we had our last weekly breakout, which is this highest close here. That's sort of where the market is right now. You can see in the last weekly consolidation that we had, you had a somewhat similar pattern. Again, we have the benefit of hindsight here, whereby you had highest close, level of resistance, the market pokes above it, and then after closing through it, you get a retest before the next leg up. And we're retesting the top side of a weekly range that's a bit higher in this instance, right? Highest close, resistance, close above it, and we're in that area now. So support, broadly speaking, we know it has some weekly context to it. Now, I think the daily time frame is where I think the 3 best levels to trade Bitcoin are. So, you know, no clickbait. I'll just tell you what I think they are. And it's essentially a daily range you're dealing with. So on the top side of the range, as we know, there's weekly and daily confluence here. It's essentially the all-time high breakout level here. Now, I think you can be a bit generous and use the whole kind of day or candle to delineate the range high or the previous breakout level, right? So it would look something like this. So as long as daily candles or 2-day candles, if you want, respect the lower boundary of support, I still think support is intact. Bullish closes would require a close above the upper boundary of that breakout point to suggest continuation in the short term, or like that support is really doing its job, right? So that's the range high kind of retesty level to be aware of. If the market's really strong, this kind of should be enough. This should be the bottom-ish or the support that should hold. because again, in a strong market, usually your pullbacks to breakouts don't fake out, and continuation is always more likely than a fake out if the trend is strong, right? Now, so that's the 1 out of 3, right? Again, best levels to trade Bitcoin for me, this is 1 out of 3, and it's the range high. I've taken a short-term trade from the lower boundary to the upper boundary today or this morning already, and I'm just kind of chilling and waiting. The only thing I'll say as a kind of point of caution is it's worth being slightly conservative when it comes to expecting a lot from the daily closes. So under normal circumstances, I would make the argument that, if this is lost on the daily time frame, it looks super bearish and that's it. You pull back much deeper. But I'm also aware that it's Monday and we're retesting weekly support, which can take much longer to kind of form or to play out. So it's not implausible for price to actually trade a bit below the level and set some sort of weekly wick and then end up closing back above or reclaiming the level later in the week. So given we're at weekly structure, but it's only Monday, unless the market makes it really clear what it wants to do, I'd be reluctant to arrive at particularly strong conclusions as to whether the weekly retest has failed or not. I don't want to end up as the wick here, so to speak. So on the top side of the range, that's what I've got, this highest close or previous all-time high close as my support resistance structure. And that's the top of the range, right? The bottom of the range is this level from, I think, last week's video at 51, 52k or thereabouts. And this is a reasonably well-defined support resistance pivoty type of thing. It was the previous breakout level, resistance, close above. You can see it came back and pinged it and broke out and made new highs. So if the market doesn't find enough buyers, right, if this retest isn't enough to take us to higher prices and we start trading back within the range, the first bounce area or trouble area or the nearest support in that case is this same 51, 52 type of area that we talked about in the last live stream. Okay, and finally, so that's 1 out of 3 is the range high, 2 out of 3 is the mid-range, kind of untested support resistance level closer to 52. And then last but not least is the same old kind of daily range low at 44 to 46 that we've been monitoring for a while. And so that's our 3 out of 3. So this whole thing ends up being our consolidation, and we have 3 pretty good and pretty well-defined boundaries to pay attention to and to derive a directional bias from in the week to come, right? So where's the first spot for fast-moving bullish continuation? It's the retest of the breakout, which we're getting right now. Ideally, it results in a daily close above the upper boundary, and that would almost certainly clear the way for bullish continuation. What you don't want to see, generally speaking, is a loss of the lower boundary, because that would suggest that this portion of price, or I suppose this portion of price, was a breakout which failed, right? As we know from our typical or standard range trading procedures, if this is where price is balanced, so to speak, the market will often or sometimes try to break out and break from balance, right, by poking above the range. And if it fails to find acceptance and trades back within the range, then this ends up being your deviation or failed breakout attempt, and price will often poke its way towards, again, mid-range and bottom of the range. So this kind of failed breakout stuff is not something you want to see, both from just like a bull market, whatever point of view, but again, more importantly, in a strong market, there's no reason for those types of levels to fail. They should provide ample fuel for continuation. So if they don't, that sucks. And again, the same qualifier applies. I would totally understand if you prefer moving slightly on the slower side, being cognizant that this area is also a weekly area and it's only Monday. So arriving at strong conclusions, unless you've got really good reason to do so, early in the week at weekly structure could get a bit trappy, right? So support here, if that fails, which should be quite obvious if you're going to bet in that direction, the next good level in my view is this 51, 52 retest. That was our mid-range all through here, right? Expecting some sort of support or buying at this level if the all-time high breakout retest isn't enough. And then finally our that's our mid-range, and then our range low is the same old 44 to 46 area. 1, range high at 56, 58, this daily close. 2, mid-range, 52 or thereabouts, and then do or die range low if we get back there at 44 to 46. Does that make sense? Is that somewhat helpful, reasonable, clear? If it is, let's get a like on the video for not clickbaiting, and I'll happily do my best to answer any questions in the interim. Halo Crypto says lose if it closes back below 56. Yeah, you know, like a quite obvious failed breakout below, taking price below this daily candle structure. Isn't all-time high break failure bearish? Well, yeah, it is. Right? You break the all-time high, and it would be the first time, I think, that an all-time high failure, like breakout in Bitcoin, has kind of failed on a significant basis. So if that were to happen, again, daily time frame, some caution needed. Weekly would probably make it clearest. Then it would certainly be enough to trade back within the mean of the range, and then possibly the range low, depending on how price develops, right? And again, there is some distinction, given how I'm interpreting this structure generally, that, okay, the market's either like mega bullish, and if it's not mega bullish, it's mega bearish. It's not really like that. I generally don't trade like that. My expectations are a bit more, I don't know, humble, I guess. That if this level breaks, yes, the all-time high breakout is a bearish signal, but I can only be bearish until either it's reclaimed or price reaches support. That's kind of the firmest conclusion I can come to. In terms of my trading. So you'll see a lot of analysis floating around, or just different trading styles, not even speaking ill of them, that one thing happens in price, and they say, well, because X happened, that means we're going back to 32k. And like, my system just doesn't allow me to operate like that. The biggest quote-unquote jumps I can make is from one level to the next, for the most part, at least when it comes to the high time frame type of stuff. So this is support. If support doesn't support, we pay attention to, or we take our attention to the next level, which for me would be 51, 52. Yeah, that's literally it. You know, I wish I could sit here and hype this up and make a really, you know, turn on the webcam and open my mouth and do the whole YouTube algorithm stuff, but it's just not as... it doesn't warrant that type of reaction. We had a really long daily range, we poked above the top side, saw some selling, and now we're retesting it. And the outcome of that retest will dictate whether to look for continuation higher or pay attention to some of these untested levels towards the mean and the bottom of the range, you know? It's about the best I can do. Yeah, that's Bitcoin. That's Bitcoin. We'll see. We'll see where it goes from there. I had a bit of an interesting punt this morning, whereby I'm using the Coinbase chart here. Didn't trade it on spot, but I had a limit buy, had a greedy limit buy at the bottom of that daily box. So I was filled on this move here, essentially, and got out. Actually, my exit was really good. I got lucky with that exit. I took this bounce into this lowest close on FTX, and that came pretty close. I think it even missed on Coinbase. No, it didn't. Here it is. So my kind of only trade I got was catching this big nuke into the extreme. Had to stomach just a bit of drawdown here, nothing too scary, and then retested my daily level, and I've been flat since, and we've been ranging. So that's about as exciting as my life gets on moves like that. I mean, I was on a bit of a losing streak before this. Like, I got pretty beaten up on this leg here, and kind of sat out of the market for a bit when it came to leverage positions, and this is kind of the most recent trade I took after not having a fun time on this drop. But yeah, as you can see, the market's just kind of congestion-y at this topside retest, so I don't see anything else I would... Because, you know, I've talked about my trading system before, right, in terms of how I structure short-term trades. So for short-term trading, I'll have a high time frame level, typically into a low time frame or kind of nearby first trouble area, right? So that's why, you know, I'm buying the bottom side, like the extreme of support at the daily structure, like the bottom of the box, and I'm not targeting new highs because it's not a swing trade. I want to get out at like the closest level to the market, which for me was this lowest close here. In and out, and just kind of watching from that point onwards. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. Hope that makes sense. I think these are really well-defined levels within a range to work with, and at the very least, that's what I'm going to be using for the next week or so, or however long the market sticks around in this area. So yeah, hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. I'll try to answer any questions. If you don't want to deal with even the daily time frame, you could look at it on like the 2-day, whether this candle is going to hold or not, or even on the weekly to see if we close above 57.5. So you've got a lot of options depending on your time frame appetite, so to speak, which is cool. So that's Bitcoin. I want to talk about today generally, because it's been a bit of a shit show in the crypto space, right? So some of you will have seen this. There's like a DNS hijack across many crypto projects. Cream got creamed again, which is just so sad. They can't seem to catch a break. PancakeSwap as well was a victim of this. And yeah, so you would log in or access the website as you normally would, even if you had it bookmarked, and if you didn't have any type of browser protection or some sort of, I think a couple of antiviruses that have browser extensions also flagged it. But basically, you would access the site that you're used to accessing to use these services, and then it would give you an error message and ask for your seed phrase to basically restore access and fix it. And that's obviously how, if you give your seed phrase, people can access all your shit, use your private key, etc. It's just not good. It's the one bit of information you never, ever give away in crypto. Dimitri says, what idiot would input their seed phrase? You'd be surprised. So if you're new here, or if it's been a while since you've played around with crypto generally, if there's one rule that you never break under any circumstances, never give anyone your seed phrase. It's just, there should never be a good reason for someone to ask for that, and accordingly never a good reason for you to offer it either. So run at first sight, or if in doubt, at least clarify with whatever counterparty you're dealing with. You know what, don't even go that far. If someone asks your seed phrase, just block them. There you go. So yeah, that sucks. And DeFi getting beaten up a bit on that type of stuff. Then I'm sure a lot of you were monitoring this. The whole India banning crypto type of news, right? Proposed law banning cryptocurrency, penalizing mining, trading, possession, etc., and all this other stuff. 6 months to liquidate positions and whatever. Now again, this, in a very nostalgic way, reminds me of 2017, where China banned Bitcoin like 3 or 4 times and seemed to ban it every other week. And obviously the market didn't give a shit. I mean, it did in the short term. You'd get dips, but then it would never lead to anything. Generally speaking, the market so far has been pretty good at dealing with bad news. It's been absorbing it pretty well. Like the CFTC Binance thing was absorbed pretty well. There was something else which escapes my mind. Now this, again, not exactly chaos, at least for now. So, selling your coins on FUD is probably one of the worst things you can do generally. Because the chances are that your assessment of how price sensitive that news is probably isn't great. And then also your assessment on what kind of impact the news will have on price, even if it is price sensitive, probably sucks as well. And it's one of those things that no one can really predict. Like, you either catch it really, really early and take the very, very short-term trade, or it's too kind of late for you to do anything until the dust settles in 99% of cases. Like, you either panic super early / immediately, like right when you see the news, assuming it's early, or you don't panic at all, right? But so far, during the course of this trend, right, if you were, we had like Binance hacked and all sorts of shit going on the way up. If you were just selling your coins on bad news, you can just see where the market is right now. You've lost virtually every single time. So if you don't have a framework for making those sorts of decisions as to when to enter, exit around news, what to do, when to hedge, how to hedge, etc., you're better off just not doing anything, at least in my opinion. And again, there's always this assumption that if you get out, that you'll have no problem getting back in at a higher price, but most people don't trade like that. So yeah, this is normal. we'll see this again, regulatory stuff or just news which sucks. And more important than the news itself is how the market reacts to it, right? If the market shows a willingness to absorb it, then panic selling into a bid probably isn't the best idea. If things get a bit shaky, I still think panic selling is a shit idea. Just use that relative weakness to inform your view in the days or weeks to come, right? So that's my view on the quote-unquote India ban. And then also, this is probably the most hilarious one of all. Anyone see this? It's kind of quant wars between CryptoQuant and Glassnode, two services which provide kind of on-chain analytics when it comes to Bitcoin. And it was this whole idea of this huge Gemini inflow, quote-unquote, dumping the market. Again, hard to take seriously. And you essentially have two on-chain research firms, individuals, whatever, arguing whether it's an internal transfer or not. I'm just really cynical towards this type of stuff at this point in the cycle, especially when it comes to Bitcoin. I think Ethereum is different. I think paying for ETH on-chain data analytics, whatever, like via Nansen or whatever else, like wallet analysis, I think that's super, super valuable. And there's probably a lot of edge in paying for those services, especially if you participate in DeFi. But when it comes to the Bitcoin side of things, I generally find it less persuasive. I think some big stuff is still useful. Like, is there a premium on Coinbase, looking at funding, or at least on the on-chain type of stuff, like outflows from exchanges, like outflows from Coinbase, where we know like a lot of institutional guys like to do their business. I think broadly speaking, that's useful, right? Or it can be useful. But now that there's so much attention, like literally in the last 6 months, so much attention placed on these on-chain transfers, on-chain analytics, I think sophisticated players will essentially start to accommodate for that. PsyOps, so to speak, or just being a bit more shielded and guarded in their behavior. I don't think it'll be as obvious, like, oh, stablecoin deposits, we're going to go up. Like, I think those short-term correlations will become more obfuscated. But I think the same type of logic applies. If you don't know shit about on-chain analytics and you open up Twitter and see that there's a big inflow to Gemini and decide to market sell all your Bitcoin, I just don't think it's a good strategy, right? So yeah, I'm not dismissing this style of analysis. It's just if you're going to use it, know what you're using and what kind of role you're going to give it in your system. People just tend to overstate it completely, like looking at this data that they've never processed before and then using it to trade like 100% of their portfolio. Like, oh, I just fully hedged, or I sold all my crypto and I'll buy it back lower. I think that's mental. I don't think that's how you trade, you know? So that's kind of been a quick the roundup of the day's news, at least for me. Bit of a messy day, and it's no surprise that a lot of this, a lot of it comes out on a day that the market's down. But you know, it's worth being aware of what's floating around in the crypto ecosystem. And if you have anything else that I missed news-wise, let me know, and I'll try to give you a hot take. The issue is Donald and I are way too European sometimes. So we've been in this, we've been basically full-time since 2017 or whatever, right? So we kind of know a thing or two about a thing or two, just in terms of how things work, even if we're not computer science majors. But because we're so European, we have like chronic imposter syndrome. So we essentially say, oh, dude, we can't talk about news because, we're not macro traders, or we don't know, we're not quants or researchers or whatever, data analytics. So we should never talk about the news because we're only lowly traders. And I just think that's a bit of a waste. Being able to pass this information and at least give our take on it is somewhat valuable. And maybe more cynically, a lot of idiots who have a small fraction of the kind of relative know-how that we do see no issue with basically making stuff up on their YouTube channels. So we can at least give you our slightly better reasoned analysis when it comes to these things. So yeah, as long as you guys don't mind, I think it won't hurt give it 5-10 minutes every live stream to go through some new stuff and give you my quick or hot take. Yeah, people asking about the Reef stuff. I'm still watching that develop because the Reef team is publishing. They published some sort of Medium article which has their version of events. I don't know if Alameda is going to take it any further with either refuting their claims or not. So yeah, it's one of those weird ones. And then I think it was called like I think FTX made a poll asking whether they should delist it, and then deleted the poll. And, you know, Reef made that statement saying Alameda's invested in them, and then Alameda said it wasn't an investment, it was an OTC purchase. Just a bit of a shit show. It just seems like chronic miscommunication or just absolutely terrible PR on behalf of both parties. I don't really know what to think. My main contribution to that Reef debate was actually going into the Reef. Let's actually look at it. Is it still listed? Reef perp. Yeah, it's still listed. So while this candle was happening, I had a fun time going onto entering the Reef Finance Telegram channel, and I just typed this: when refund. So that was fun. That was the extent of my involvement in the Reef fiasco. By the way, if you're ever bored, it's so much fun. When a shitcoin gets like rug pulled, scammed, it mega nukes, some sort of FUD comes out, there is absolutely no better way to spend your time than going into their Telegram channel and just watching the fucking spam and talking shit. Like, it's so funny. There's just so much panic and wrecked and people tagging admins having a meltdown. Like, I know it sounds cynical, but I just can't deny the entertainment value. So I just went in there, hit them with the when refund, and left. Anyone remember when Matic mega nuked? When was this? This is like a while ago. No, it was even before this. Was it the Binance? Oh, it can't be. Surely there's a... Has it gone up that much that it's showing me and I've just forgotten? Whatever. There was one point when Matic only reverse mega nukes. Yeah. At one point, Matic just mega nuked really quickly on like an intraday... Was it on the Bitcoin pair? Maybe. Maybe it was. Oh, yeah, I think it was this, right? It was this candle here. So this was, I think it was. Anyway, one of the Matic pairs, just when it was like a really, really hot Binance coin, it just mega nuked in a day. Like, it was grinding up. There we go. Here it is. This is, this is so good. So it was this day here, right? When you just completely retraces the entire uptrend during the course of a day. And the Matic Telegram on this day was just the most incredible thing ever. And people were like drawing images or photoshopping images of the CEO wearing like gold chains and bling and doing all that type of stuff. So if you've got nothing better to do, and certainly if you're not exposed to these shitcoins and want to kind of revel in the market chaos, just watch for these mega nukes. Often Twitter will let you know as well, and then just go on the Telegram and see what's up. It's so much fun, just to, you know. And for a lot of people, it's kind of their first real crypto nuke, pullback, whatever. Like, it's 2021, right? So you've got a lot of new participants. So when shit nukes really hard, which we might be used to, but they might not be used to, like, just the sheer shock in people's reactions, it's a sight to behold. It makes it feel like we're all young and green ourselves. Yeah, bit of a tangent. So Bitcoin we covered. If you're conservative, you want to see the weekly close back above 57.5 for bullish trend continuation. If it significantly or meaningfully fails this topside retest, we're probably trading back within the daily range, and those levels to pay attention to would be, or the levels to pay attention to would be 51, 52, and then if that fails, all the way back to the bottom of the range, 44, 46. So at support now, if not, here. Level to level, trading within this consolidation, we'll see what's up. ETH. Actually, the weekly range that we talked about on ETH USD is shaping up really nicely. So I think you can do a similar thing on the weekly time frame. You can take this pre-breakout cluster as your weekly range low, and then the highest weekly close as your range high. And there's your weekly range on ETH. This is support, this is resistance, and there's probably something in the middle there which I'm not hugely interested in, to be totally honest. Indeed, that actually, I lied. That mid level is around 1600 or thereabouts. So in a similar vein, just looking slightly rougher than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is retesting this area from the top side as support. ETH is retesting its top area as resistance, right? So same thing. This is your range high. This is the middle of the range at around 1600, and then you've got your big boy support at 1300 to 1400. The most obvious or bullish case for continuation would be a break through the range high, higher high, whatever, that weekly expansion through basically 2K, and at that point, the roof probably goes off of this thing. If this continues to break down, where Bitcoin has its 51, 52 level, ETH has a similar level at 1600, right? That's kind of, so Bitcoin midpoint 51, 52, ETH midpoint 1600 or thereabouts as the first support if the market keeps dragging lower. And then in both Bitcoin and ETH cases, your do or die, oh God, please help me, support ETH 1300, 1400, Bitcoin 44, 46, right? But again, I don't like to jump to conclusions when I'm dealing with a range. The whole point is I have 3 levels to work with, and I kind of work with one at a time, right? There's the top side, something in the mid, and then the range low. And if the market's trading like this, I just trade those levels and try not to think kind of past or beyond them, you know? So yeah, ETH, I think you could literally either just use something like this or draw those 2 weekly boxes, and it'll give you a nice high time frame perspective, in my opinion. Does that make sense so far, just with Bitcoin and ETH? What I mean by a range, where the range comes from, trading the range, etc., etc. If it doesn't, let me know. I think it's reasonably straightforward. No clickbait. Let me open a window, man. It's hot in here. See, I live in my mother's basement, so a lot of the central heating is down here, so it gets really hot. Are you living in the city or in the countryside? I mean, I've never been outside my parents' basement, so I'm not terribly sure which part of the United Kingdom I live in. So I wish I could tell you, but I haven't earned that degree of freedom yet. What would you say were your favorite sources that made you successful at margin trading? Losing money. Matthew says, do you have any kind of daily, weekly, monthly goals as far as gains percentages? No, I think that's stupid. I think setting yourself goals for the most part will just will actually just limit you, hamper you, put you under undue stress, etc. So if the market's really going well, like if the conditions are really favorable for you, and then you have some sort of arbitrary target, like whatever percent per month, and you hit that, you're potentially getting complacent at the worst possible time, when you should be trading more. And of course, the opposite works as well. If the market conditions are really shitty, and there are just a small handful of trades that are actually worth taking in your system, but you've fallen short of your monthly percentage goal, you're just going to overtrade and make it worse. So I don't believe in monthly, weekly, whatever targets. I believe in trading well. That's whenever I trade, that's what I focus on. If I'm doing well, if my brain is in the right place, I ignore P&L, I ignore monthly this, that, I trade without my P&L on the screen, and I always focus on what's the best decision here, what's the good trade, what's the correct process at this point in the market. That's when I actually have success. As soon as I start looking at numbers, no, stuff doesn't go well. Mo Jake says, I'm thinking about buying the crypto face indicator. Is it any good, guys? No, do not buy any indicators, especially if you're new. Just don't. Like 9.9 out of 10 indicators that you'll be buying are going to be shit. Don't bother. Unless you've got really good reason to. Yeah, let's take a look. I mean, I'm happy to continue answering questions. I hope Bitcoin and ETH are clear. We can look at some of the other stuff. What do I think about SXP? I think I've got it here, haven't I? Somewhere. Yeah, I mean, this thing is range bound, right? Resistance at the range high, support around the range low, with a tendency or willingness to poke around below it, and that's kind of it. And I don't really see anything in the middle that's terribly attractive. So if you're bullish this, you want to see a break and acceptance above the upper boundary at $3.50. If you're more on the buy the dip type of side, you really want the range low to hold, and your kind of lucky entry. We can see the market really likes trading below this level and then reclaiming it, right? So you see all these failed bearish retests get flipped and the market trades higher. So if you're going for wicks and or lucky entries, in this case, I wouldn't gear them towards the range low itself, but actually below the structure to catch wicks. So range, breakout, great. Otherwise, time to get greedy with bids. Why does all of DeFi blue chip look like cancer? Yeah, a lot of the DeFi stuff doesn't look great. I mean, it's just ranging, right? I wouldn't say it looks bad, and it's all of it is up as like 10 million% from a year ago, or whatever. But yeah, a lot of these had bullish setups, which just kind of didn't go anywhere, right? That's probably the best way to describe it. So YFI, you got a bearish retest at the previous support, and that's that. Uni's more or less there. You had the breakout, but it hasn't come back to retest yet, so not much I can do here. Sushi, you had a see what looked like a break from the range, now a bit of a pullback, but I don't really love how this chart looks for the time being, but it's one of the better performing ones. SNX, again, sideways, right? Retested resistance, making its way to support. Link, again, retested resistance, back at support now. CRV, I don't know why this chart is so ugly, but it's moving sideways. Comp, same old thing. You had an attempted bullish setup on the reclaim through all these lows, and then it fell back below it and chopping. Aave, very similar. Attempted to reclaim, didn't work. Still moving sideways. So I agree with you. DeFi, I wouldn't say it looks like shit. It's just moving sideways. It had a decent attempt to reclaim these breakdowns and send higher, and it just didn't work, right? It just didn't work. So yeah. Yeah, Mo, we talked about the Pancake Swap and Cream Finance websites. That's a rough one. Is there anyone else that does actual free education videos like Cred that are decent? Any recommendations for mentors? Trader SZ's videos are good, and there's a lot of them. There's like years of price action stuff there, so that's a good one if you just want a lot of content. Very different style, but also good. I watch CBS's live streams as well. Cold-blooded Schiller. That's always fun. But I don't know if they'd even call themselves mentors, right? It's just good trading content. People asking about Kusama. Did that do something crazy, or... I don't have a lot that I can say or do here, to be completely frank with you. Like, it looks fine. I think from a market structure point of view, if you wanted to be slightly conservative, and again, this isn't like a high conviction play by any means, because whatever. But you had a high here preceding a lower low, right? The breakdown. So if that then makes a higher high, you probably have some sort of play towards the all-time high and beyond. That's kind of the only thing I can see. At resistance, if it breaks that, I don't really see much in the way here before new highs. But I also think it depends on what DeFi does generally. If altcoins stay flat-ish, it obviously becomes harder for this thing to massively outperform, you know? No worries. Yeah, we talked about the reef finance stuff. We talked about ETH, didn't we? Oh, BAL. Yeah. Isn't that like outperforming massively today? Where does this level come from? I did not know where these levels come from. Oh, weekly. Fair enough. The cred from the past has done my job for me, it would appear. It's early in the week, but generally speaking, you had a weekly range. Support. Resistance. As long as the weekly close doesn't close red, so holds above 94s, BAL BTC probably outperforms and trades towards this last base before the breakdown. As a result, I expect BAL USD looks decent, yeah, to say the least. All-time high breakout type of thing. Again, I think similar / same rules apply. The best all-time high breakouts are the ones which don't come back to retest, right, and just full send. So anything that fails or falls back below this level for any meaningful period of time, probably not worth it. But yeah, looks good against Bitcoin, pending weekly close. Same here, pending breakout. And the best breakouts don't pull back. Something to bear in mind. Does it look to you like the momentum on Bitcoin is finally slowing, the 3-day showing each leg up getting smaller? I mean, maybe, but I don't have a clear or even semi-objective system that tells me whether momentum is slowing. Like, I don't use divergence. I don't have any specific oscillators to tell me about what momentum actually looks like. I don't kind of measure moves or do stuff like that. One thing to say is, like, a lot of the time the monthlies have looked really tired, or it has happened that the monthly looks tired only for the next month to just slam it with a huge buyer, right? Like, this monthly candle potentially looked weak, and then we just had this one, now we're up again. So, I don't know, momentum can change really quickly. As we've literally seen, one big buyer, like the Elon candle type of thing, can entirely change what the chart looks like. So I'm not huge on inferring momentum, I guess, because I don't have anything empirical to gauge it, so maybe I'm the wrong person to ask. But I actually think that the chart itself just looks really nice, at least in terms of the levels you've got to work with. You've got the breakout level. That should really hold in a bull market. No reason for it not to. If it doesn't, we trade lower. Lower where? Into the midpoint, which is probably one of the better looking support resistance flips levels on the chart. And if that fails, then we're back at the range low at around 44, 46. This is a really nice kind of general range to be operating in. Someone's asking about FTT. I'll take a look at FTT. I've got a large portion of my portfolio in FTT, just as a disclosure or whatever. Doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean you should copy me. I know nothing about anything. I'm an idiot. Against Bitcoin, it's kind of an up-only type of deal for the time being. It did pay its dues in this range, but then, you know, failed breakdown reclaim, and it's just been straight up since then, right? So against Bitcoin, it looks strong. Nothing to add. Recently, you had a short consolidation which broke out and seems to be going up, so that's good. As for the USD perp, it's kind of the same thing, right? You had your consolidation, and then since then, you have like impulse, consolidate, impulse. Slightly messier here, as you'd expect given what Bitcoin looked, but since then, you know, breakout, retest, looks fine. So yeah, I think you have to pay more attention and build a thesis more based on fundamentals. If you care about FTT, like, it's basically a bet on SAM or a bet on FTX. So it's not like just like an ETA thing. In my opinion, probably warrants some further research, but purely on the technical side, looks strong for the time being, right? Same rules apply. Anything that falls below the all-time high, probably not great, right? Someone asking about Sol. Sol is an interesting one because people keep asking about it while it's not really doing much. I think we talked about like some sort of weekly resistance thing going on here on the Bitcoin pair. As for the USD pair, I've got a pretty unambiguous structure at 10 to 11. If it comes back there, great. In the meantime, it's just moving sideways for a couple of weeks now. So devoid of strong views while the market's moving sideways, and more importantly, while it's away from structure. BNT. Oh, well, I've got something coming up for BNT, it would seem. Is that daily level? Where does this come from? If it wants to pull back into this area here, previous lows, highs, and just this pre-breakout consolidation generally, that would be support on the Bitcoin pair. And I think the USD pair looks similar in that regard. BNT, USDT. Whereby we have an old range at $6.50 and range high, and then $5 range low. So maybe a decent play for BNT is confluence in the USD pair pulling back to support at around $6.50, with the BTC pair also landing at support closer to its kind of breakout structure here. That would be reasonable, but for now I can't kind of consider that, given neither the BTC pair nor the USD pair have actually landed at structure. If it does, then it, the door opens, but otherwise I have to wait. Ooh, Vet. Why is that? I saw Vet on like the front page of Reddit. Was it today? Yesterday? I don't know. They had their weekly whatever type of summary thing. I'd say the BTC pair is at resistance, right? Lows, highs, lows. That's where the market's ended up right now. So resistance on the Bitcoin pair. USD pair, I mean all-time high, obviously. And that's actually one of the benefits of looking at the the BTC pair. If the USD pair is an all-time high and you want to get some sort of understanding as to where is their support, resistance, take profit levels, whatever, the BTC pair will very often give you that context, right? So BTC pair at resistance, USD pair, I mean obviously no resistance because new highs. A level I really don't mind is this breakout level at 0.05 here. You can see it's important because you had resistance, you had a big nuke, and then the big nuke got completely engulfed. And I really like those types of nuke into engulf patterns. They tend to make for pretty decent levels. So that's probably one worth paying attention to if the market pulls back. Cred, why are you looking at 2D candles? I never saw that, only 1D and 3D. I don't know. Most of the time I click it is by accident, actually, if that gives you any confidence. Oh yeah, ETH BTC, good shout. And if you have any questions which aren't about charting specific coins, let me know as well. Slightly more, maybe more helpful. And let's get to 200 likes. That'd be cool. It would make me smile for like 0.8 seconds. Very, very worth it. ETH BTC hasn't moved, right? It hasn't moved. It's in an area of support, but it's been in this area for more or less, whatever, 3-4 weeks now. So, I mean, ETH generally has been underperforming Bitcoin. It's kind of like downside beta, right? If Bitcoin goes up, it goes up less than Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes down, it goes down more than Bitcoin. So, generally speaking, the EIP 1559, I've seen an argument floating around that it hasn't been priced in, so that would be interesting. I was personally expecting all the DeFi projects popping off to be to the benefit of ETH, but instead we saw that the scaling issues that DeFi interest brought up was actually to the detriment of ETH, as opposed to providing some sort of mechanism for value accrual or whatever. So that was shitty. Everything on DeFi goes up, ETH meh, right? In relative terms, underperforms, and then as soon as fees price out and some competitors stick their foot in it, number go down. So the conditions, the broader market conditions haven't been terribly nice to ETH. So ETH BTC at support, but you know, not much going on for the time being. Everybody asks, how is this looking, cred? Nobody asks, how are cred? So I'm asking, I'm good, thank you. I know sometimes in these streams I sound really deadpan, bored, whatever, but this is just how I would speak to my friends or people I respect. So, you know, there's no YouTube filter. I've been doing this for way too long to have a YouTube filter. So maybe it's less entertaining, but at least it's genuine, right? Like I watch, mostly by accident, I sometimes get exposure to crypto, like proper big crypto YouTube channel. And it's like, it just goes absolutely mental. Like they just start screaming at you. And it's like, why are you screaming at me? I've been doing this for like, whatever, 4 years. I don't know. I've always found it insulting when this whole kind of clickbait, shouting, trying to overexcite me when it comes to finance, trading, investments, whatever. Like if we're looking at esports, you know, playing video games, doing some IRL stuff, challenges, whatever, it totally makes sense to have that drama injection as part of the content, right? Like I totally get it. But if we're talking about like a lot of money, trading, investing, markets, which are really hard to trade unless you know what you're doing, if you're sat there screaming at me, I'm just not going to take you seriously, you know? And it's obviously just fake enthusiasm. Like if one of my friends came to me and asked me about Bitcoin trading, whatever, this is how I would talk to them, right? In this tone, very matter-of-factly, whatever. Can you imagine how insulted you would be if you came to a friend and you're like, hey, I heard about Bitcoin and I heard about cryptocurrency. It looks like a really interesting market. What can you tell me about it? And then suddenly his face changes. And he's like, hello, guys. And now we've got our Bitcoin analysis. This is one of the best markets in the world right now. Stimmy checks hitting. The Fed is printing. Let's get into it. I'll just be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Who are you talking to? Right? But that's the thing. For some reason, that filter just completely vanishes when it comes to like crypto YouTube videos. And I just can't fucking deal with it. Maybe I'm too old. But I'm just not capable of treating people in that way. So this is what you get instead. I'm not 23, I'm 24. Scam stream, yeah. People asking about legacy. I have a legacy section in my overview portion thingy. And I follow Tesla. I look at MicroStrategy. I look at the S&P 500, gold, euro, just to get an idea of where the dollar is, and ARK ETF. This is what I follow from traditional finance. And I don't trade these markets. I just keep an eye on it for correlations, risk, what are the big guys paying attention to, talking about, etc. Just to get the market at a glance. As I've said before, I really think this is one of my favorite and most valuable tabs. I've got Bitcoin and ETH in my majors. I've got all the indices to get an idea of how altcoins are doing. So I've got altcoin perp, mid perp, so mid caps, DeFi for DeFi coins, holy perp, which are SAM coins, exchange perp, exchange tokens, shit perp, shit coins, privacy perp, priv perp for privacy coins, and then traditional finance for the Wall Street boys, correlations, etc., etc. Why use Euro USD over DXY? I mean, they're almost perfectly inversely correlated, and Euro just tends to have nicer levels than dollar, in my opinion. I'm not following HBAR. Elon tweeted NFTs? Oh, for fuck's sake. Let's see. What this? I'm selling this song about NFTs as an NFT. I think this is a shit post. I hope this is a shit post. 2 minutes 20. Wow. Cred, what are your first 3 must-watch videos from your tutorials? I think they're in order, Andrew. If not, go on to my profile, open this up, and then you'll see the order which I think is reasonable here. So it goes candlesticks, risk management, order flow, horizontal support resistance, market structure, timeframes, retests. But you can access it here. I think they're in order on the playlist as well. Also, this is going to sound really bad, and this isn't an attack on you, Andrew, because you're asking about the order, but it just reminded me of something that I was thinking, whatever, a few days ago. I'm very particular when I make my videos, so I will pay a lot of attention to what kind of other content exists on that topic, and then I essentially decide if it's worth me making a video on it. Also, I will avoid making videos on topics which I don't trade myself. So when I made the RSI video, I traded RSI all the time. And then people were asking, well, do a MACD video, do a Bollinger Band video, whatever. And I always refuse because those are not systems that I trade. So me making videos on things I don't trade would be really stupid, right? As a result, you'll see on the Cred channel, the videos don't come out very often, but when they do, they're like properly detailed, and you know, it's stuff that I think is really worthwhile and that will make a meaningful difference in people who know what they're looking for, right? Now, this is where the issue comes in. A lot of the times, I will have people who leave comments, message me, whatever, and I'm always grateful for the feedback. But the message will say something like, I watched all your videos like twice, and I still like don't understand how to chart or how to read a chart, or like this just doesn't make any sense to me. And a lot of the time, I just think like, fuck, man, if you can't understand my videos, you're probably not going to make it. Does that sound bad? Does that make me an asshole? Like, it's almost like an IQ test. Like, I know what the content space is like, to a large extent. Like, if you've watched all of my stuff, and you just don't get it, maybe it's just a sign that you should do something else. I don't know. Whenever my brain kind of processes that, I start to feel bad immediately, because obviously as a quote-unquote educator, you want to blame yourself, right? Oh, well, the people watching my content didn't understand because it's my fault. But sometimes I'm just like, maybe it's a stupid motherfucker who just isn't going to make it anyway. Maybe him not understanding is a signal which he should take and go do something else, you know? David says, for a swing trader, do you recommend a 1 hour chart or 4 hour chart as trigger time frame? It depends. It depends. I tend to use... Well, that's the thing. I don't always have a trigger time frame because a lot of the time I'm doing business at the level itself, right? So I'm not waiting for like a candle close or this, that, etc. as a trigger time frame to trade. Now, a lot of the time if I'm swing trading, I'll use the hourly time frame for trade management, if that makes sense, or at least to monitor the market on like the hourly or the 4 hour, if I'm trading like a daily setup, for example. But I don't have a trigger time frame. But generally speaking, yeah, for sure. Swing trading, hourly, 4 hour, to execute or even manage. In my case, manage. I don't see any issues with that. I don't trade Forex. Cred, how do you go about counter trading yourself? I don't. Thankfully, I don't. I sometimes do on an emotional level, if that makes sense. Like, if I get filled at a level and it gets pretty uncomfortable, I sort of just talk myself out of doing anything. So it happened this morning, right? The trade I took on Bitcoin, which was essentially trading the daily range just as a scalp, basically. The lower boundary of the red box into this close here before the big impulse, right? That this is my level-to-level trade. Now again, I had a limit order and I was on a Zoom call. I know, look, this looks like the most bullshit exit in the world. Trust me, no one was more surprised at this exit than I was, right? But it is what it is. This shit happens. So in terms of counter trading myself, I generally avoid it, but you have to realize I'm getting filled on this move here, right? Which looks like it completely washes through the level as soon as you get filled. And as long as I've been doing this, there's still no shittier feeling than getting a fill and then the market just nuking. I don't know. It just doesn't feel great no matter how much. Even if you know better, it still doesn't make the feeling any better. You know what I mean? In this case, and this is why I think my time frames video is so important, I don't need this to work like immediately, because I know that it's a daily, weekly level. It can take slightly longer to play out, even if it is moving to a daily trouble area. So the idea here was, we're nuking big, I want to catch a bounce with a greedy entry. And again, the top, if we're looking at this as that same daily area as, well, an area, we have the same considerations that we discussed in sort of yesterday's video, right? This whole thing is support. You're guaranteed an entry, or more likely to get an entry, at the top half, because it's closer to market. The entry with the superior risk reward, but less guarantees that you get filled, is at the bottom portion, right? So I will generally gravitate towards trading the quote-unquote better or riskier entry, because I think the risk reward tends to be better. And I have to be right less to still make money, right? That's also very important, and why I like to trade in that way. So in this instance, like, do I counter trade myself? I would say no, but I do have to talk myself through not doing certain things sometimes. Golden Calf says, what makes the entry greedy? I wouldn't say it's greedy per se. It's just the superior risk reward type of structure, right? Again, if you've got like a level or like a box which is comprised of two levels, this one is always going to be closer to market, assuming a pullback. This one is further from market, but if you get filled, it's really a kind of do or die type of setup. So that's what I mean by greedy. I just tend to mean kind of the last ditch do or die entry. And those are the trades that I really like. What does your invalidation look like? Honestly, I would be comfortable to sit on this for a while and let it kind of marinate. Because, I mean, I was fairly confident to get some sort of bounce, unless the market were to turn full-blown scam. And again, if you look at the context, I'm buying, in this case, with a limit order, the absolute extreme of daily support. And the context is we've essentially nuked in one day, like 8% and 10% from the highs within the space of like 30 minutes, with 1 billion liquidated in about 30 minutes. Right? So the probability of getting some sort of bounce or just anything at all is pretty high. How do you scale in? I don't. I got limit filled on this nuke here and was instantly underwater on this leg. There you go. 55,932, 57,295, right? 55,932, 57,295. The level, 55,932, 57,295. Like, I'm not making this shit up. And there's nothing impressive about this. I mean, this trade was slightly pain in the ass watching this and then watching the second dip. It wasn't fun. But I'm, you know, if I talk about a trade, it's because I took it. I've got no incentive to make shit up on this live stream. And also, that brings up a quite fun point in my mind. Like, the idea that, oh, you can't trade daily levels because everyone's looking at them, so you can't trade them. Because if everyone's looking at them, they won't work, or they'll get front run, or this will happen, that will happen. It's just not true. Right? It's simply not true. A lot of the time, people just talk, so that's one thing. And when price actually comes into their levels, they just pull their limit orders or puke or do nothing. We're also a very small part of the market, like kind of Western traders looking at TA. There are a million reasons for people to be trading at all these prices, right? So just assuming that the whole market works on TA is also naive and harmful, if that makes sense. So when I say that I trade levels, I don't like trade 1% above, 1% below, or like a little bit. When I say I trade my levels, I just literally trade my levels, right? Coop says, can I ask why you don't scale in personally? I actually addressed this in yesterday's video. It's to do with retests. Why would I scale in, right? In my opinion, I either the trade is so good that I want my full size exposure immediately, or if that kind of urgency isn't warranted, then I have no issues waiting for a really good entry, and if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. Right? So that's the thing. There's always a downside built into a scaling trade. You either get partially filled if you're right, or you get a shitter entry if you're right and the market pulls back further. Right? There's always something wrong with scaling into a position, and I just don't like it. I don't. And I agree with the point that David makes, that it makes managing the position harder as well if your average entry is kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? Or between structures or whatever it is. So I just don't believe in scaling. I don't like it. I mean, I don't believe. It's not a religion. It's not like you believe or don't believe. I don't use scaling. What was your plan to exit? I was just selling the nearest daily level, right? I bought the extreme of daily support and then looked, where is the nearest daily resistance? And for me, it was this lowest close here. So I got out there. I didn't play it a second time. No. I was just in and out, hit and run type of trade. You can scale in. Yeah, you can. No, I'm not saying don't scale. I just don't like it. I don't trade like it. Do I use any indicators? I don't. I don't. Do you giga leverage trade? I try not to giga leverage trade. I put a stop. I mean, if you're a new trader, you should just ignore this section. But I didn't put a stop on this position, as I often won't do if I'm fading a really big nuke. You can open your ears now if you're new, but yeah. I caught this, I knew that it was a weekly daily level, and I'm experienced enough to know what a reasonably sized wick looks like, or how far it can go, while the idea is still valid. And I was at my PC monitoring it the whole time. Getting out, as I said, daily first trouble area. Any thoughts on exposure to BTC through GBTC? It depends. If you're doing it for certain like tax benefits, or you can, get some sort of match via your IRA or other, usually tax, benefits from using GBTC, then use GBTC. But generally speaking, there's this really nefarious Wall Street trend where they want to give so-called professional accredited institutional investors access to Bitcoin in any way possible except via buying Bitcoin. So they'll buy MicroStrategy, JP Morgan will build its own shitty basket of crypto instruments, whatever, but I just think most of it sucks. If you want exposure to Bitcoin, then buy Bitcoin, right? In my opinion, at least. I don't care about volume, usually. Halo says, do you ever change your scalp into a long-term trade because you think it can go up even? No, absolutely not. I think that's how you lose money. I really think that's an unhealthy approach to the markets. Changing your scalp to a long-term trade, it's just how you turn into a bag holder, really. The whole point of a scalp is you're basically trading like one leg or a quick hit and run. If it keeps going, well, great. Figure out another trade to get on board. Don't try to use your same idea and shift the criteria when you're already in a position. It doesn't make any sense. The whole point of planning, like the so-called value proposition of planning trades, is that supposedly you're more objective in the planning stage than you are in the execution stage, right? That's kind of the benefit. Is when you plan, the market isn't at the level and you don't have your P&L flashing in front of you. So you have some sort of emotional self-control, and that's what you're supposed to follow when you're actually trading. And you have the benefit of making those decisions when you're not under any kind of emotional duress, right? If you then start adjusting on the fly, especially on the greed side of things, where you kind of widen your stop or widen your target because you already have stars in your eyes, that's how you lose money. In my opinion. So if you're scalping, scalp. If you're swing trading, swing trade. But don't turn one into the other unless you really, really know what you're doing, you know? Tell us what you enjoy doing for fun. Exercise, walking, playing certain video games sometimes, but nowadays it's just looking at Twitch streams because I'm too bad to play the games myself. CSGO, Valorant, Overwatch. Used to play those games, now I just watch cracked out kids play them in my place. Yeah, that's kind of it. There's nothing else to do in lockdown, really. What's the risk reward you look for on every trade? I really don't. Again, if you're a beginner trader, don't listen to this, but I don't care about risk reward for the most part. Okay, sweet. I hope this was somewhat helpful. I know it's a slower stream, no music, etc. But, you know, if the market looks like this and altcoins are just not interesting and Bitcoin's at a key inflection point, then we kind of have to go a bit sideways. If we could smash 300 likes, that would be awesome. I've enjoyed your company, enjoyed answering your questions. You know the Bitcoin levels, 57-ish, 51, 52-ish, 44, 46-ish. Let's see how this range develops. And I will be providing updates on Twitter, whatever else. And more importantly, the newsletter. Just go to trletter.com. That'll come out tomorrow, so you know if something crazy happens, we'll have the write-up ready for you. We send one email a week. It's completely free. Just like this show, brought to you by Blockfolio. So if you just want the levels and the analysis without the rambling, that is the place to be. That's all I've got for now. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Look forward to catching up later in the week. Trade safe. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.